What does it take to lead one of the largest and most complex service organizations in the U.S. federal government? What are VA's key priorities? How is the department reducing its claims backlog? And what will it take to get the electronic health record modernization right? We'll explore these questions and so much more with Dr. Paul Lawrence, Deputy Secretary at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. So you return to the Department of Veterans Affairs in its most consequential leadership role outside of Secretary, this time as Deputy Secretary and Chief Operating Officer. Would you tell us more about your role, what drew you back to the department, and how has the department changed since your tenure as Undersecretary for Benefits?
Certainly. Well, you got it right. The Deputy Secretary in the Department by law is the Chief Operating Officer. So you're responsible for running things, right? People getting paid or people be able to receive their benefits or doing the day-to-day things. You're also a strategic advisor to the Secretary, providing advice, insight, and guidance, and doing those things that he's unable to do by virtue of his schedule. So it's a pretty wide-range job. What drew me back was, of course, our passion for veterans. I think you probably talked to other veterans and they're like, hey, we really would like to help other veterans. And getting taste of this in Trump's first term really opens your eyes to what's possible. And of course, the president might be one of the most pro-veteran presidents ever. A little bit of an exaggeration, but not by much. And so I knew that his passion for veterans would continue, and this would be a great place to be. We all know that when we left the first term, there were still things to be done. And so we thought about that for a number of years while we were on sabbatical. So I thought the chance to come back and finish those things that we left undone that we wanted to do and to make things better for veterans was really too great an opportunity to miss.
That's wonderful. So I want to get a sense, given what are your strategic vision is for the department, and what do you see as the top 2 or 3 most urgent priorities demanding attention right now?
Yeah. Well, our strategic vision for the department is to provide veterans world-class healthcare benefits and memorial services. That is our mission, and that's what we want to do. And we use world-class because we really want the experience with us to be excellent. Maybe we never attain that, but we're going to keep trying, and that's part of the point, right? Is to really push hard on those things. The way that plays its way out is sort of a couple things, right? We want to make sure veterans have access to care, and when they receive that care, it's really very, very good, right? So, for example, we just looked at some statistics. More than 90,000 veterans are getting care from us than when Trump was inaugurated, right? So we need access to care, getting veterans the benefits they've earned. And of course, we'll talk later. The new electronic health record is coming to make it better for them. We want to make sure they get their benefits in a timely manner. We'll talk later about this, but we reduced the backlog of claims waiting over 125 days from 260,000 to this morning 87,000. And we want them to be quick, fast, in a hurry, less than 80 days to get your claim on average. And again, memorial services, we get involved in the American Customer Satisfaction Index where they benchmark us against other agencies and organizations, and NCA, the National Cemetery Administration, comes out at the very top of that list, regardless of company and sector. So those are the metrics we use. Those are the things we focus on. And in terms of priorities, the Secretary is very clear about this. He reminds us all the time of his top priorities. There's 6 of them, but I'll just tell you about a couple of them, because you might have seen him talk about this one: put veterans at the center of everything we do. Really a North Star, if you will, about focusing on veterans, not on the organization and not on personal agendas. He also talks about things like giving veterans timely access to the benefits and health care, giving them choices, challenging the status quo, celebrating empower employees and holding them accountable, and then some things that are near and dear to him, really working hard to deal with homelessness and veterans in risk of suicide.
You kind of touched on, Deputy Secretary Lawrence, the operational principle for reform, and that is putting the veterans first in everything you do. And I'm wondering, you alluded to it, but I was wondering if you could go a little deeper on how do you define the core mission in operational terms? And maybe I could piggyback that with, and what does success look like for a veteran who's engaging VA today compared to, say, 5 years ago?
Certainly. Well, the operational terms are metrics. So here's where we get very granular, and these are often not talked about in public, but at some point we are a business, right? So we are a business, and so providing benefits you can measure. You can talk about what our expectations for our employees and see if we adhere to those. And where the connect between your question is, what should those numbers be, is what we hear from veterans directly. The secretary and also me and others, we go out and talk to veterans every chance we can. When I go out for the electronic health record, I'll often spend a night out or a night or two out, and those nights I'll go to an American Legion or VFW post and hold around a town hall with veterans, talk for a few minutes and take their questions. And listening to those questions, they're telling us what they're interested in. Hey, my claim is taking too long. The forms are confusing. I don't understand. So we have a great feedback mechanism in our veterans, and they guide us as to how to think about those. And so that really is what drives our goals, and hence the metrics behind it to make sure we are meeting those. And it really ties to the Secretary's point about accountability. If we're going to deliver a service, he talks about us being in a retail business. We have customers. They show up at our facilities. They have expectations. We should be measuring and talking about how we're doing.
That's perfect. So I would like to switch gears, Deputy Secretary, to a topic that is very troubling and seems to be still high, and that is veteran suicide. I'm wondering if you could share with us, what is the department's current strategy to deal with this and mitigate this issue and around prevention? And what do you believe the most promising opportunities, where they lie?
Certainly. Well, we also feel, as you do, Michael, the number is high, and the Secretary's been very clear on that. He looks back and says, it's remained high for a long time, and we spent an awful lot of money, and it seems not to be working. So his approach from almost the first day he got here was, what are we doing with all this money, and aren't there better ways to think about it? So he changed out the leadership of our suicide office and is really scrubbing hard on, what are we doing with the money? Are the grants we're giving out, are they having any impact? Are we thinking about alternative ways to approach this problem and the like? So our strategy is to figure out how to involve others. Quite frankly, again, you've heard this whole of government thing, and really looking for other ways. I don't have any results to report right now because, of course, it's a journey, but I think the desire to try new approaches and look to new sources for insight and advice is something that is really dominating our thinking right now.
So another area, Deputy Secretary Lawrence, is veteran homelessness. And that's been it has a longstanding focus of VA policy and genuine progress over the last 15 years or so. Where does the effort stand today? And more importantly, what is VA's strategy for building on what has worked while addressing the communities and populations where homelessness among veterans seems to be persistent?
Yeah, again, this is another of Secretary's personal passions. And so we're very proud that in the 1 year we've been here, we house more homeless veterans, almost 52,000, than have been housed in the previous 7 years. So this is something we take very personally. A lot of us, to include me, have been to homeless stand-downs where we invite homeless veterans to come and realize, it isn't just a roof over your head, it's all the other services we can get you that help you reintegrate and pursue your American dream. Right? Your veteran status is supposed to help you do this. So we continue to, bring all the forces we can bear. But what's something that's particularly exciting is we're spending a lot of time talking with other agencies about how to do this together. So, for example, HUD's deeply involved. We have meetings with them regularly about what can we do together? How do our programs work with your programs? What are the gaps? And also, quite frankly, again, here's where the nonprofits are invaluable. They want to get involved and move the needle too. So we're trying to enlist them in a way that makes sense. So I say we're expanding the community to try to make sure we get this right.
That's great. So switching gears a bit, Deputy Secretary, to the Electronic Health Record Modernization Initiative, which you have considered and said it's one of your personal priorities. The project has some well-documented challenges. I won't dwell on those, but I was wondering, can we discuss where the initiative is today, where it stands? What is your assessment of what will take to get it right? What can we do? What do you think in the areas of how to improve its implementation?
Yeah, you're right. You're being charitable, Michael. It has a difficult start, and we acknowledge this. The Secretary's been very clear when he's gotten questions in hearings. He says, you're right. It's a difficult project. It has not gone where it should have been, and we acknowledge that. From the very beginning, when the Secretary got here in February of last year, he convened people, and I would show up about 6 weeks later and said, hey, we have to get this done right. There's no excuse for what's going on. Not only got to get back on the program, because if you remember, it had been paused. The last deployment of the electronic health record had been in 24. So here we were more than a year later, and nothing had happened, and the pace was too slow. So we got everything together and said, not only are we restarting, but we are going to accelerate the schedule. So in 2026, we're going to deploy in 13 facilities. Then in 2027, we'll deploy in 26 facilities, and the number will continue to hover between 28 and 30 until by 2031, we've deployed in all our facilities. So the expectations are very, very high. I think there were a series of things that were missing that are now being applied. Intentional leadership. Secretaries appointed me. The law appoints me to go and do this, and it is my number one priority. As well as sort of aligning our contractors and getting everyone focused on the seriousness of what we're doing. Quite frankly, we can't wait any longer. If we're going to deliver world-class healthcare, we need an electronic health record like what we're buying, so we need to make this work. So there's a real sense across all the levels of this importance. Two is, and this is a little inside baseball, is like we're going to be standardized on the software. The first efforts in 2018, 19, 20 led to everyone customizing the software and just making a mess out of the whole thing. Okay, so we stopped all that and said, no, we're standardizing around the software. One VA will be one VA, not many VAs. And we're really going to do that and drive our work around the software. And then we're taking this very, very seriously. We involved, everybody we can from all across the department to bring to bear on the very best thinking. And so by the time you listen to this, we'll have gone live at 4 sites in Michigan. And so we'll have real activities and lessons learned to talk to you about in my next appearance.
Artificial intelligence and data analytics, as you well know, are reshaping government service delivery. I'm wondering, where do you see the greatest opportunities for VA to use AI, whether in claims processing, healthcare delivery, or veteran outreach? And what guardrails are necessary, Deputy Secretary, to ensure these tools serve veterans equitably and accurately?
Yeah, well, I'm really glad you asked about the guardrail, because normally people hear about the new toy and want to go AI and go, what are we going to do with it, right? And of course, everybody runs around saying everything all the time, everywhere. Okay, but I really do think the second part of your question is really very powerful, Michael. Like, what are the guardrails? Do we really understand what this tool is, and do we appreciate why we're doing it? So I would say we're taking a cautious approach to this, and we are learning from others. So, for example, we're using it in healthcare, where so our providers don't have to transcribe the notes; they can talk. Right? They talk; it gets written into the record. That saves time. And when we do process claims, it can gather and assemble information for us, but people still make decisions. So I would say it's promising, but I think that there's still much more thinking to be done. And again, is this balance, right? We want to be able to make sure we are delivering personalized care. We don't want our employees to do rote, mindless work that technology can do for them. But we also understand there's a really big human element to the services we provide, and that's never going to be replaced.
So I'd like to switch gears a bit to benefits delivery, claims modernization, and the PACT Act. And in particular, in your previous tenure, you ran the Veteran Benefits Administration during your first tour. And so you were very familiar. You made so much innovative progress around disability claims processing. I'm wondering, there's a goal for reducing claims backlog that seems fairly significant, from I think 60,000 by the end of the year, from 238,000 back in 2024. How will VBA achieve this reduction, and is it realistic?
Yeah, well, we're already achieving it. Again, President Trump showed up, the backlog was 265,000, and on average, people were waiting 140 days. That is, by any scale, unacceptable and really not very good. If we were to grade it, you'd be give it a really damning grade. Okay. Right now, the backlog is at 87,000, which means we have reduced it by 2/3. And so it is possible. And we did that with, quite frankly, Michael, fewer employees than the year before. Okay, so we are doing more with less, and quite frankly, it is done with better management. A focus on what really needs to be done, with what the veterans tell us needs to be done, and going and doing it, and marshaling all our ability, our employees, on this goal. And again, average days to complete from 140 to 80 this morning. So you're getting your claim done in 2 months, shorter period of time. Okay, that's what we think needs to be done. Yeah, we want to continue to drive the backlog down because we don't like people saying, I'm waiting for my claim. These are earned benefits. You should be able to access them as quickly as possible. Now, there are some things we have to do that just take energy and time. But you're right. We think the backlog should hover somewhere well below where it is now. We have a goal of 60,000-ish, but it wouldn't surprise me that our sort of running number was somewhere between 70 and 80,000. Just cause, and we think that's kind of a good place to be.
This has been the Business of Government Hour, a conversation with Dr. Paul Lawrence, Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Be sure to join us next time for another informative, insightful, and in-depth conversation on improving government leadership and its effectiveness. Until then, subscribe, download, and listen to the entire interview at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or on your favorite podcast app. And as always at businessofgovernment.org.